Here's the deal, guys. More than 99% of the people watching this video right now aren't going to follow any of these steps or take any action. They'll watch the video, they'll say, oh, that was cool, that was informational, but they will take zero action whatsoever. This complete guide is going to show you guys how to turn $100 into over $100,000. And there's 4 simple steps. But yet more than 99% of the people watching this video aren't going to do it. Now, there is a catch. It is going to take a lot of time and it's going to take a lot of effort to implement these steps. But if you only have $100, this is your place to be. Let's go and get into it. Oh, and by the way, that's Tuki. She's going to be our guide today. Okay, Tukes? Is that okay? Yeah, okay. Step number 1 involves zero capital whatsoever. This has to do with incentivized test nets. These happen all of the time. I want to share with you guys a example of one of them. This is the dimension airdrop. Simply all you had to do was make a couple of interactions, play around with the protocol, and of course, test their DApp. That's what they call the incentivized test net. There are multiple chains that offer these, and there are some good places to check to see when they have some. Airdrops.io is a great resource to see some of these incentivized test nets. DeFi Airdrops is also a really great source to see some of the different incentivized test nets. And an additional resource is Cosmos Airdrops on Twitter. These guys are some pretty good accounts to follow. Keep in mind, some of them may be rewards for people staking particular tokens, but they do offer a lot of different testnet guides that you complete, and they take zero capital, only a little bit of time. One of them, for example, that was shared yesterday is Satoshi VM. This is basically a little testnet that you guys can use. And they already said that it would be an incentivized testnet and that early users and testers would be rewarded. But simply how these testnet guides go is you simply just add the RPC to your wallet, depending on which one it is, and you simply go to the faucets and then you try the swapper, the lending. There's several different things that you can test. But another example of one of them was Lavana. This one, they gave an airdrop to early users about a month ago, but there is a list of them. You can also follow my Twitter account. I'll share some of those resources there. And if you guys are in the Discord, links in the description below, you guys can access all the different test nets that you can follow in order to get some of these airdrops. Now, the second one is a little more difficult, but it's a lot more lucrative. If you scroll down in this little testnet participation, you can see here that there is mention of becoming a node operator. I had a friend who set up a node for the Dimension network, and he ended up getting over 30,000 Dimension tokens. Now, there's speculation that these Dimension tokens are worth between $4 to $5. And if you calculate that, that's almost $150,000 for simply just running a node. Now, this step is a little more complex, but if you're willing to put in the time and effort, you can earn a lot of money with this. An example of one of these node guides would be Eigenlayer. Breezy Node makes some really good guides, but scrolling through some of these, it'll show you a step-by-step process. Now, it is a little bit complex if this is your newest thing. It's not simply just adding an RPC to your wallet. This one is a little more complex and it does involve some coding. And if you have no experience with coding, like me, it took about 3 to 4 days to learn this, but I was able to get several nodes up and running. In fact, a list of the nodes that I've already got up and running or almost done is the Tia node, Zora, Eigenlayer, Shardium, Avail, Starknet, Namada, Babylon, Tycho. Now, keep in mind, you can run as many nodes as you want across all of these different chains, but you will start to hit a limit. Some of these things do cost money. Here's an example of 3 of the nodes that I have running right now, which is Zora, Tycho, and Starknet, and I have some other apps that I'm working on right now. But you can see here that these things are running, and if these do end up giving a airdrop to some of the people that are deploying a node, I do see that it could be extremely lucrative. I've seen a lot of tweets on Twitter talking about the Zora node between $50,000 to $75,000 for a airdrop. And you're probably thinking to yourself, how much did it cost me to set up this node? Well, I created an Alchemy account. An Alchemy account is basically free unless you hit a certain amount of requests, which 176,000, this is a lot, but typically it ranges in the millions. Once you hit that, then you have to pay like, I don't know, $39, $49 a month. depending on the different plans that they have. And if you don't want to use your computer storage, which I don't want to, because some of these nodes take up 200, 300, and even 400 gigabytes of storage, you would have to configure a VPS. The VPS that I use is Contabo. I'll drop a link in the description below so you guys can check it out. But Contabo, I mean, some of their cheapest plans are going to cost you like $10 a month. Now, factor it in, let's say we're running this node for 12 months, full year, whatever, that's 120 bucks. And then considering the Alchemy account is completely free, basically looking at $120 for a year. Now, sure, okay, we went like $20 over budget, but I'm working on a discount code for you guys. Like I'm in the talks with them. I'm trying to get a code for you guys. Maybe we'll get one, maybe we won't. But still, it's a pretty cheap VPS provider, and it does have the potential to offer some really sizable airdrops. Here are some examples you can see here. Running a TIA node, all you had to do was simply just run a TIA node and you would have gotten over $50,000. The TIA node by far is super easy to set up. It took me about 15 minutes to set up, no coding experience required. You literally just click a couple buttons, you follow a guide, and it's done. There's a bunch of guides out there. If you guys are in the Discord, I dropped all of those in there. I'll share some links in the description below so you guys can check out a bunch of the different guides. But you simply just go on Medium or Twitter and say how to set up a node for TIA, and it'll give you all the command prompts to do that. And you are going to need a SSH client. This is a free download, so you can literally just download this. This is for Mac, so if you already have like a Microsoft computer, you can use something called Putty, and basically it allows you to enter command prompts into it. And once you connect to your server and everything, this will show you guys everything you need to know in that guide. You can then go ahead and get running. All you literally do is you copy these different command prompts and then put them into your SSH client. So you literally do copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And if you ever have any issues, there's one really, really cool tool called ChatGPT. You copy the error codes, post it in there, and it'll say, hey, look, you made this error. And then it'll say, try using this. And then it'll give you the command, copy the command, and paste it in there. Now, keep in mind, this is a little more complicated and more complex, hence why the reward is so much larger. But if you are willing to put in the time and effort, you will learn a lot about coding. It took me about 3 or 4 days learning this stuff. Yeah, sure, it may have seemed like a lot of waste of time, but at the end of the day, I learned a lot about coding, and I now greatly appreciate the devs and how much work they put into creating all these different protocols that we can use. But again, to summarize, setting up some of these different nodes are extremely lucrative. Like here's another example of a guide saying, look, here is how you set up a Zora node in 10 minutes. The potential reward for something like this could be over $100,000. And to clarify, going back to the TIA airdrop, at all-time high with the prices, if you held the airdrop, you would have made over $190,000 actually. So $50,000 was when the price of TIA was around $3 or $2.50. So kind of putting that into perspective to understand how lucrative these airdrops are. Oh, and then there is one other tool that you'll need. It's called Docker, but Docker is something that you can download. This is in the Celestia guide. This is on docs.celestia.org/nodes/docker-images. I'll drop that in the description below so you guys can check that out. But if I forget, I read it to you so you know what to put in. Now, keep in mind, there is a reason that no other YouTuber is talking about setting up these nodes. One, it's because it's really complicated and hard to set up. Two is the ones that do understand how to use it or set them up, which is few and far between, they don't really feel like sharing. And the reason they don't feel like sharing is it's diluting their yields. Now, there are some people out there that will share this information on Twitter and Medium. They make some really good tutorials, but getting assistance is few and far between. So if you are trying to set something up like that, beware. It is going to be frustrating from time to time, but trust me, it is well worth it, especially when you get that success done and then you see those blocks just constantly processing. And especially if you do get a airdrop down the road. If you guys are in the Digi Squad Discord, don't worry, you guys can just ping me, tag me, and I'll be happy to help you with some of the things that I learned when setting up a node. And I'll say, hey, look, you can do this or try this, or hey, oh, this is what it is. So if you guys are in the Discord, I'll take care of you on that. Now, one other thing I do want to mention about setting up these different nodes is make sure you are setting up the right ones. Don't simply just go ham and set them all up. There's a problem when you do that. One is you may not get rewarded. Secondly, you'll fill up a lot of the space that you have on your VPS and you won't be able to set up more successful nodes. So you want to make sure that the team has good backers, the team is obviously quality, and there is rumors of a airdrop or some sort of incentivization. You can look into their discords and ask about that information. But again, the ones that I set up and I do have on the radar are the TIA node. Well, that one kind of already came out, so just play around with that. That one's really small. It's a light client. But Zora, Eigenlayer, Shardium, Avail, Starknet, Namada, Babylon, Tycho, and Barachain. Barachain is one of the newer ones. They don't really have much information out there on how to set up one of these nodes, but in particular, they do have some guides on how to use their testnet and potentially qualify for a airdrop with using their test chain. And lastly, one of the things you do want to look for is if they have a big ecosystem. Like Barachain, huge ecosystem. It's part of the Cosmos eco, or something like Eigenlayer. This is a massive ecosystem. It's a part of the restaking layer for Ethereum, which will attract a massive amount of communities, and they did have a ton of funding. Those are some of those things that you want to look for when you're setting up these nodes, but don't be scared to get your hands dirty. And one other tip of advice, if you got a Mac, get rid of it and get a Microsoft. It makes it so much easier. But if you're willing to take on the challenge, happy node running. Now, the last one that's a little bit more simple and not as complex, but it does involve a little more capital than $100 depending on the chain that you're on, has to do with minting different tokens. There are some really cool tools to help with this, but yes, these things, they do print. I wasn't early enough to mint Ordi, but I was able to mint some of the bitmaps, and I did share with you guys a guide on how to do this. In fact, after the video came out, you still had about a week in order to mint some of these bitmaps. The cost to mint one of these was around $1 a bitmap, depending on the gas fees, and currently the price of a bitmap is around, currently at the time of recording, around $300. So basically that would be a 300x in a matter of 3 months. Now, another one of these is Nats. I also made a video guide for you guys so you can mint some Nats. If you guys are watching this video now and you minted some Nats, go check Ordinal's wallet. You got a good stimmy check. The cost to mint was like, I don't know, $5 in order to mint one of these inscriptions at the time, obviously depending on gas. But you can see here, depending on how many nats you got, you probably receive 500 to 1 billion tokens, depending on the inscription date. So at the time of recording, if you see the prices of these, if you got about 1 billion nats, you're sitting close to $300. So turning $5 into about $300. And the time, it was about a month and a half, maybe 2 months. Another example, you simply could have just minted rats. It was a BRC20 token. If you guys were in Discord, yes, you ended up minting some rats. These things, it would probably cost you around $2 to mint a million rats token. These are currently worth about $300 at the time of recording. And at its peak, these things ended up being worth around $600. And another token that anyone could have minted, they were minting for about 5 to 6 months, was Sats. Now, Sats may or may not have done many multiples depending on when you minted. If you minted when gas was dirt cheap, like when Ordinals first came out, or at least after the first dip when it was like 3 or 4 Sats per VByte, you would also be up about a 3 or a 400, maybe even a 500x. If you ended up minting with some higher gas, you'd probably only be up about a 200x. But either way, minting these tokens only costs you a couple of dollars, and depending on when you mint it, it could even be a couple of pennies. To show you how this minting process works, you first need to find a token that you want to mint. So to show you how to find some of the tokens that haven't minted out, you can simply go to in progress, and then you can look for a particular page and look for some that haven't minted out. So let's take, for example, Heme. So we're going to go over here to Unisat, and we're going to go to the inscribe section, and we're going to type in, well, first you got to select BRC20 and then do HEEM. Now we're going to hit next. You can see here that it's going to mint 1 tick worth. So if we hit next, it'll go ahead and deploy this. Now, once we deploy this, the amount of tokens that we are going to be getting from this mint is only going to be 1,000 tokens. 8,500 tokens have already been minted with a max supply of 5.5 million. It's probably not a good idea to mint this token, mainly because one, there's only one holder, and two, we could just be wasting some gas. The cost to mint this right now is $5 or $4.69. Now you're probably thinking, well, that's not a lot of money. Well, it depends. If you're just going out there minting all these different tokens that aren't going to do anything, yeah, it's a lot of money. This can be a infinite poop shoe. But if you're minting the right tokens, like your sats, your rats, your track, your ordi, if you're minting those tokens, you can make multiples on these. Now, BRC20s have been around for a bit, so it's a little bit harder to get those 100, 200, 300x off those mints, but there are newer meta protocols out there coming out with new tokens
that do have the potential to do multiples. Nats is an example of one of them. But this does take a lot of grind, research, and effort. You have to be a part of these communities and willing to put in the time to see what's up. There are some guys on Twitter with their finger on the pulse. One of them, for example, is Ordinal's Support Desk. They run 24/7 Twitter spaces. But another tool that I really like to use is Genie Data. This basically shows what's going on in the mempool. And right now, you can see here, people love SCAT. SCAT is just a BRC20 token. They aren't minting this token because it's minted out, but a lot of people do like this token and they are buying and selling it. You can see here 508 of the transactions in the mempool are involved around SCAT. So what you can do is spot what's going on Genie Data and see what's minting out. You can also see here another meta protocol on Bitcoin. This is TAP protocol. This one's getting a lot of volume right now. This is probably due in part with the NAT token. You can click on it, it'll expand and show you what's going on in there. But you can see here they got RPG, they got Joker, Joker, Nat, Joker, Joker. So maybe even Joker is minting out. But these are just different things that you want to look for to see what you should mint. And obviously you want to keep an eye on the mempool to see what the gas is. Right now it's around 51 sats per VByte. This is a median range. This is not too bad. A low sats per VByte at today's ranges is going to be around 20 to 30 sats, which is almost impossible. Not almost impossible. It just hasn't been there in a few months. But those are some of the gas ranges that you want to look for. That means your cost to inscribe that we showed you on Unisat is going to be so much less. So if you saw like $4.50 at 50 sats per VByte, if you cut that to 25, your cost to mint is only going to be a little over $2. So the lower the gas fees, the more your margins or the more gains that you make. So if it only costs you $2 to mint instead of $4, you now make that many more X's. Another tool or another meta protocol that I really like that you can mint different inscriptions on is Doginals. Doginals, you can mint some of these things still. Now, there already have been several really successful tokens that have minted and done multiples. Dogi was one of them. This one did more than 1,000x because the cost to mint is just dirt cheap. But you can scroll through and some of these protocols and tokens that are minting, they're still making 100, 200x's. An example of one of them is Dosu. If you guys were in the Discord group, we were minting this out, and Dosu ended up doing, it was like a 200x. Currently, the market cap of this thing is $774,000. And when this was minting, it maybe cost you a penny, 2 pennies to mint, what is this, 10 billion tokens? Hence why the price is just so many decimals. But let's just put it into a perspective that's a little bit easier to understand. If you cost or spent $1 to, or one Dogecoin to mint all these different tokens, that one Doge would probably be worth around 300 Doge tokens, or about 200 Doge. So not bad multiples. It's pretty good depending on how many you minted out. And of course, there's other meta protocols that you do want to keep your eyes on and see what's going on. But I want to summarize where we are at so far, especially since the video got roasted and I do have to recap this. The first thing is Testnets. Make sure you guys play around with these different Testnets, and you do have to grind on these things. Use a burner wallet though. If you are using a regular wallet and it ends up being a malicious testnet, it may end up draining your funds if your private keys are entered, etc. Never enter your private keys on anything, but as always, be on the safe side and err on the side of caution. Don't download anything. and use a burner wallet, especially with interacting with these testnets. Also, keep in mind, don't just do, I mean, you can do every single testnet, just understand you're going to be wasting a lot of time if you do all of them that end up being useless. But focus on the ones that raised a bunch of funds, have a good backing, really strong community, and of course, hinted in the Discord or Telegram groups that there will be an airdrop. Those are the golden ones. Keep those on the radar. I dropped some in the description below, as well as some resources you guys can use in order to find some of those golden ones so you guys can check them out. The second one, a little more difficult, but in my opinion, well worth it. You learn a lot of information and you appreciate the devs much more, is setting up some nodes. These can be extremely lucrative, and the cost to do them, it's really cheap if you compare it to the size of the airdrop. Just taking into consideration the TIA airdrop at its peak being almost $200,000, the cost to set it up using a VPS and Alchemy, probably about $100 for a full year plan. You ended up getting $200,000? I think it might be worth it. And again, the same thing with the testnets. You want to look for this with the nodes. Look for a strong ecosystem and a strong community. The bigger the community, typically the better the airdrop. Some examples would be like the Zora node or the Eigenlayer node. These have raised a lot of money from VCs. They have a large community and a large audience. Typically when they raise a lot of money, the airdrops tend to be sizable, so the VCs can exit. The next thing we went over had to do with mints. Now, minting things, they may or may not do something, but you have the potential to get a 100, 200, 300, 1000x on some of these different inscriptions that you mint, as well as a potential airdrop. This was a tweet from Ordinal's wallet. Simply buy an Ordinal or sell a BRC20 and you would have got a Pixel Pepe. At its peak, these things were worth 0.4 or about 0.5 Bitcoin, and which would be about $17,000 to $20,000 USD at the Bitcoin prices at that time. And then simply just inscribing over on Unisat. You see this little thing over here where my face is at? You have your little wallet that you can connect. You have this thing called Unisat points. Now, I feel like Unisat will probably, likely, yes, reward users who are using their DApp with an airdrop. Or if they do have a token, and more likely than not, it's probably a good idea to use it, especially if they have a point system. The same thing goes with Doge Market. If you're using Doge Market and they end up doing an airdrop similar to like Ordinal's wallet did, it's probably a good idea to do this. And I'll spill a little bit of alpha. This is a degen play, but they have a chain called Bells. Bells is actually the first meme coin chain before Doge. This actually came out before Dogecoin even came out, and they currently have some Nook minting. Not financial advice, but it's probably a good idea to get some Bells coin and mint some of these Nook tokens. This, it'll probably cost you like $5 in order to mint, we're talking quadrillion? No, not quadrillion, but a lot of these, like more than you would ever know. Yeah, a couple trillion, like more like 100 trillion, maybe 200 trillion tokens. With a couple dollars worth, you can do pretty well with the Bells token. Currently, gas fees are pretty cheap relative to the Bell token, because the Bell token's only like 27 cents. But just keep this one on your radar. Come back to this video maybe a year later. The inscriptions will either be worth 0, or you would have opened up to like, we're talking hundreds of X's. So just, this is one of those things you guys have to keep your finger on the pulse. Yes, I did share this in the Discord. I'm sharing this with you guys now so you guys can check it out, but first inscription over on Bell. So again, you want to keep your finger on the pulse and get involved with communities that are really watching these things and are in it every single day. Now the fourth bonus thing that you can do with $100 would be staking 2 TIA tokens, 2 Atom tokens, and 25 Osmo tokens. If you staked 1 TIA, you would have gotten the Dimension airdrop. You would have gotten a minimum of 200 tokens, possibly even more, but there's speculation that this token is worth $4 to $5. An investment of about $100, or at least covering your TIA side, maybe like 20 bucks. You're looking at, well, nice. You would have turned 20 bucks into $800 to $1,000, depending on the token price. This one is a little more passive, so if you are just like, I don't want to do anything, you can go ahead and stake. I would recommend voting on some proposals and being a little bit active but that is a passive strategy that you can do, and that would just be one of the airdrops. They also announced a couple more airdrops. There was one that they literally just announced today. There are so many that I can't even remember the names of, but just staking some of those tokens is a really good idea. If you need the full guide on how to do that, check out the previous videos. And if you are feeling really frisky, I made a bunch of different guides and put them all in a playlist for you guys. So it's simple and easy to do, so you guys can click through and bridge and play around on some of these different chains, spend a couple gas fees, come back a little bit later, and you might have a fat stack. Make sure though you are staying active, because some of these aren't auto dropped. You do need to claim some of these, and if you don't claim, you can miss out on some life-changing gains. So don't forget to claim, stay active. If you guys are in the Discord group, I will make sure to update you so you guys don't miss out on any claims. I'm in this stuff every single day, and I'll make sure to share all the information I get. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, tell me what you guys want to see more of, and if you want to join the exclusive Discord, there's a link in the description below, as well as what I'm doing in the markets, and I am active in the Discord, so if you guys have any questions or burning questions that you want to ask, I'm happy to help. Proverbs chapter 17, verses 10. The rebuke impresses a discerning person more than 100 lashes a fool. Be good, be righteous, be discerning. Peace.